All right. Hey, everybody. TG here. And good morning to everybody. I'm waiting just 2 seconds for, there we go, the recording to kick in on the simpler trading side. And welcome to everybody else who's out there on the social medias. I think we got a bunch over there. We got YouTube, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things. Thank you, Mirza. Looks like we're good to go. And the big news is that we basically have FOMC tomorrow. And so that's why the market is not doing much today. And we actually started to see a few things weak, kind of selling off a little bit, pulling back today. Yeah, David Soundhound like that. I think it's just that everybody's kind of not going to do much leading up to that news, that catalyst. That's why you guys probably noticed that the UVIX, the VIX, was going up yesterday, even though the market was up yesterday, partly in anticipation for the FOMC event. So they're kind of factoring that in, and then also partly because, well, the market right here, right now, is getting a little extended, just a little bit up there. We're starting to pull away from some moving averages, and we're starting to get up into the 30 ATRs and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we're getting a little bit up there. Oh yeah, futures contracts rollover. Okay, I don't know how much that's going to affect things, but yeah, that's a thing. And then Tommy, hey, is this your friend Amber that you were mentioning? You got one of your friends coming in saying hi in the Moxie room. So welcome, Amber. Hope you're going to enjoy the session here and the time here. We'll be doing the social media session for I don't know 15 or 20 minutes. Then we'll roll over and just kind of do Moxie room only. So if you guys are out there on the social medias, if you guys want to get more time coming into the Moxie room, that's where you can check me out. Okay. Yeah, and then some jokes like, "Oh, our account's down a little bit today." Yeah, totally normal, ebbs and flows. We've had a very, very strong beginning of the week. Yesterday was pretty strong, and then really actually last week was very strong because we finally had the CPI report, and the market said, "Oh, cool, inflation's not that big of a deal." And so we are most likely going to get a rate cut because what the market is more concerned with is about the labor participation and the labor force and all that, and actually starting to see some declines there. And so the idea that we were going to get some rate cuts is pretty much locked in. So I'm sure it's like over 90% likelihood that we're going to get a rate cut tomorrow. I believe the market is expecting about a 25 basis point rate cut, which I think is reasonable. I don't think they really need to do much more. I think 50 basis points would be kind of a surprise and probably not a great surprise because it's like, what does the Fed see that we don't see? But I think if they do it 25, it's just like, look, okay, we're going to start the rate cutting again. We're just going to take our time, be gentle, easy, and no big deal, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that makes sense, and that is also why the market has been way up here for the last few days, and we've been seeing some really excellent moves out there in the market. We can even look at the FNGU. This is the leverage ETF of the FANG stocks, and you can see that they're still kind of up today. The small caps and mega caps have been just alternating ever since the tariff tantrum lows. When we start getting up into an area of resistance or extension, it's really kind of amazing to just watch and see how they keep the indexes up. And it's because they just rotate money around. You'll see them, small caps will be strong one day, but then mega caps will be strong the other day. Or maybe you'll see Apple and Netflix up one day, but then Amazon and Google will be up the next day. They just keep kind of moving money around like that. And it's been quite interesting. So with FNGU here up here like this, these are the mega caps. Of course, happy that they're up. This just is indicative of a good market. And the video that I put out over the weekend was basically saying, the market has been just chopping around sideways like this for weeks, anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. So a month and a half to 2 months. And you can see that FNGU is a pretty good example of that. While there were some pretty hefty dips, they were all bought up. And what you can start to see is that there was a line here, and the market did not want to go lower. And so what this was doing, and what we could recognize after a period of time, because you never know where the market's going to go, especially when we had this was what was it? Apple. No, was it what is this? It was Meta and Microsoft had earnings, and they just huge moves to the upside. And you could see that the FANG stocks went up as well. But then they immediately sold into that, and I'm like, oh, okay, that must be marking the top. And now are we going to start getting this pullback since the market was overbought? Are we going to do that? Well, they bought it right back up. And at that point, you're like, huh, okay, interesting. We'll have to see if this is just a temporary buy the dip situation. And sure enough, you can see that the market got sold into again. But this is when it started to become clear. You can see that the market just did not go lower from there. And it was at that point I was like, okay, I think I see what's happening here. The market is not ready to go up. We are starting to come into that seasonal weakness of August, even September. The market was overbought. It had been going up since the April, since the tariff tantrum lows. And really what we needed to figure out is, okay, if the market doesn't want to go down, then what's it going to do? Well, it went into rest mode and it really just kind of went sideways. And you could see that the market worked off its overbought condition by going sideways for weeks. And once that was kind of known, then I said, okay, so we probably don't want to be short in the market. Of course, individual names will be going down and pulling back and doing stuff like that. We could see that underneath the surface. But for the most part, it's like, I don't think we want to be shorting anything. We really just want to be patiently waiting, maybe buying the dips and figuring out when the market's going to be ready to go higher. And we did start to figure that out. The mega caps again kind of led the way. You can see here they started to break out first. But then you can see other things like ARKK. Let me throw it over here. We get a bigger view. And you can see this is the ARK fund. This is also kind of this is one of the sectors or indices that I like to use to kind of look at some of the small caps, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more risk on. And you can see the same deal. We had a pullback and we had another pullback, but it couldn't get lower. And even that third pullback, same thing, just couldn't get lower. And at that point, I said, guys, it's a matter of time until this market goes higher. We just have to figure out what it is. And basically, once we figured out that it was going to be probably the CPI, since everyone was like, oh my gosh, we had a really, really hot PPI last month. And is that going to continue to be hot? And is that going to trickle down into the CPI? And then when we had a cool, or at least, a definitely not hot PPI, everyone's like, oh, okay. Maybe this is just a one-off situation, people readjusting from all the tariffs and stuff like that, and maybe getting ahead of that curve. And then we found that the CPI, and it really wasn't anything notable. It was in line and all that kind of stuff. And that is when the market started to move up like this. And you could see the same thing with ARKK. You could see this pennant that we were running in through here. And then you could finally see it started to get over there and then just launched. So yeah, really, really pretty cool. And at this point, I think the next thing that the market's waiting for is the FOMC. As I said, I think that we have priced in a rate cut since the CPI has been low. And I'm kind of leaning towards a buy the rumor, sell the news. Now, for those of you out there, Amber, I don't know much about you. Maybe if you want to tell me how much experience you have, if you've heard of these kind of old adages or these phrases, let me know. And same thing, anybody out there in YouTube and X and Facebook, stuff like that, let me know. Because there's another one that has been coming up. Screen, there we go. That it's sell Rosh Hashanah, buy Yom Kippur. And that starts kind of early next week. And it seems to me that we've kind of got this situation where the market has moved up based on news or rumor, based on a rumor that the idea that rate cuts are going to be happening. And we've gotten a little extended. And this is how the market just likes to be a little bit perverse and likes to try to make as many people wrong as possible and likes to definitely mislead inexperienced traders. And so what happens is you see we got this really big move up like this. And then when the FOMC comes out and they say, we're going to cut rates. And everyone's like, that's amazing. This is great. Rate cuts are great for the market. And, the people who don't know anything are going to come in and they're going to start buying it because they heard rate cuts. And you know what? The professionals have already made all their money. They already pushed the market up. And then they are going to sell into that news and they're going to sell into all that new liquidity. Again, this is just my guess. This is kind of what I'm thinking will happen. We don't know yet, but I think it's likely to happen this way. Even if we get a little bump up Wednesday, maybe even into Thursday, and then we start selling it off, I think that would be a pretty perfect situation because then we do have that seasonal weakness of sell Rosh Hashanah. And I think, big picture, I think this will be fine. Yeah, Tommy Boy, exactly. Prepare your shopping list, guys. Take some profits if you had some really good trades. We've been taking some profits on some things. We made, what was it, 292% on IonQ. So, took profits on that. And we've been doing well. And so you take some profits on a move up like this. And if we do start to get a pullback or some seasonal weakness for the next, I don't know, week, two, who knows, however many days, go out there, find your shopping list, watch for stocks to start pulling back into support, because I do think we're in a good, strong market. And then what, maybe we can start to move back up again once this kind of shakes out. And that's how I think this is going to go. So we'll have to see if the theme and the narrative that I have actually pans out the way that I think it is. There's always some bumps in the road, and we'll have to figure out how that works out. Yeah. All right, Trading, good to see you out there on YouTube. Let's see, DAX. I almost never look at this. Is it actually just DAX, or do I have to do dollar sign? I guess just DAX. Okay, yeah, that's actually just okay. It's Germany. Fine. It kind of looks a lot like the American market for a while, right? That you look at this, you're like, yes, it does look weak. But what if it's just going sideways? Because that's what the market looked like for a while too. You could see the SMH, semiconductors actually came down for a while, but they didn't want to go lower. You could look at the QQQE, which is the equal weight of the Nasdaq, and you could see it was down and kind of looked pretty weak, but now it's actually starting to move back up. So until we really get confirmation that this thing wants to go down, I'm going to be leaning a little bit more towards it's digesting. And in fact, if we come over here and look at the higher time frames, look at that monthly and weekly. In my eyes, for now, and we'll have to see if this changes, it's really just flagging sideways into moving average support. Now, if it starts to lose these moving averages and actually starts to trend down, sure, okay. But yeah, other than that, there's really not much to say about the DAX. They're really just resting because these things had some really, really big moves. So we'll just kind of have to keep an eye on something like that if you're interested in it. And then trading, let's see, other than that, you said Baidu is looking good. Yeah, obviously Baidu's been doing great. Quite a few Chinese names have been doing great, which is kind of interesting to think that, the American market is looking to cut their interest rates and CPI is cool. And yet the Chinese market is actually starting to enjoy that. This is the other interesting thing. People keep thinking, well, what about all the tariffs and isn't this bad and all this kind of stuff? Like, well, according to the stock market, China stock market does not care too much about the tariffs if they are at least involved. And I know Baidu, okay, it's not necessarily tariffs, but one of those things where if we're looking at China as one of our biggest trading partners, most of China is actually doing great as far as the stock market goes. So just kind of things to put out there. All right. Now let's see what else you guys are looking at here. Let's see. Yeah, and when is the second event? Yeah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. I believe, as you guys have helped me. Why is my calendar not working? Okay, for whatever reason, my calendar is just not working. But I believe it starts around the 22nd or 23rd of September. And that should be the sell Rosh Hashanah situation. And then Yom Kippur is October 2nd. So there you go. That's kind of what we're looking at. That's why I'm saying that in preparation for that kind of seasonal weakness, it doesn't necessarily mean that on the beginning of Rosh Hashanah that the market goes down. It could actually start to get a little bit weak ahead of time as people kind of keep anticipating this. And then the same thing on the other side, the anticipation of the holiday ending and seasonal strength coming back could come ahead of the October 2nd thing, or it could happen at the October 2nd or sometime after that. These are just rough things to kind of be aware of and how that works out. All right, yeah, and then David Soundhound is down. Yeah, but you know what? Not that much. I really don't think it's that bad. Of course, it would have been nice since we were talking about it yesterday. Yesterday looked great. We had a nice, strong morning. Unfortunately, this is how the market likes to mess with people sometimes. This is how it goes. Is very misleading. Had a very, very strong morning and they sold it off, didn't they? Well, that's kind of how things go sometimes. We do also have to understand, David, that we are in right now, like FOMC. Not a lot of names are probably going to want to run up today, and I think that's probably what happened here. Is whatever market makers or whoever's moving these around, they saw that there was probably a double bottom off this hourly 50, which is what we spoke about, and it did have a move. But they took that opportunity to kind of do a near term double top, and then they sold into it. Okay, and then we have FOMC, so nobody's going to really probably press this too hard. However, if you step back a little bit and you look at the daily chart, what do we have? If you look here, all of the bodies of the candle, and this is for today, this, I don't know what tomorrow is going to be like, but notice that so far, all of the bodies of the candle are above the 8 EMA. That's actually pretty good so far. It can change, but for now, that's pretty good. And yes, there was a wick, but look where the wick went. The wick went number one to the daily 21, and number two, it came right back up. So I really don't see anything too wrong about this. Sometimes you gotta just kind of either have fuzzy expectations with stocks sometimes. Of course, sometimes they could be very precise, right here into the daily 50, right here into the daily 8, right here into the daily 21, great. But also some fuzziness because, well, look how long this could be doing this, back and forth until finally maybe it goes up. That's the kind of stuff. Or look how long this thing took to transition from the pullback before finally going up. So again, I really don't see too much issue yet. Yeah, I just don't see a problem. All right. And yeah, let me know if anybody else out there in the social medias have any more questions. I think ever since I moved the social media session from Wednesday to Tuesday, I can see that people are having a hard time tracking where my new schedule is. I got to somehow put the word out that I've moved this thing to Tuesdays. Let's see, trading Ole. Let's see, QSG. I don't think I know this one. Yeah, it looks pretty decent. Let's see, what is a Quantising? I don't know anything about this. But yeah, looks pretty decent. In fact, trading Ole, if we look at this is actually, here's the question. Trading Ole, do you have the Moxie indicator? Because I see you're here on YouTube and been, a couple times you've asked me some questions. You've found me some way. Do you have the Moxie indicator? Because I don't believe I've seen you in the Moxie room. But part of the reason I'm asking you is because if you look here, this is the benefit of having the Moxie indicator is it has these setups. So like what I talk about here is you have price below the hourly 50, but notice how the Moxie indicator is still above zero. Since the Moxie indicator is a momentum-based tool, it's basically the backbone of how prices move. So if the indicator is still above zero, indicating that momentum and energy is still positive, still bullish, even though price is down or below the moving average. So you might look at that and be like, oh my gosh, it's underneath the moving average. It's trending down. It's going to be a short. And then it immediately turns to the upside. Well, the whole point of what the Moxie indicator is trying to do is tell you that momentum is still positive. And so this is most likely just a dip, just a pullback. Price shouldn't be below the 50 if the Moxie indicator is above zero. And so that's what we're seeing here. And that is the power and the benefit of the Moxie indicator. And what I can show you is if you're watching something like this, you can be aware or think ahead of time that this is a potential buy the dip scenario. And so if you're looking for the entry, well, I can pinpoint it right there because of what the Moxie indicator looks like, because of the things that I teach in the Moxie room as far as moving averages. And these yellow dots on the 15-minute time frame are what I call the Moxie power dots. It's basically like the squeeze for the Moxie indicator. And you can see how the squeeze for the Moxie indicator started to light up right at the beginning of this particular move. This is a great setup, actually. So yeah, I don't know anything about this stock. I'll write it down so I can just kind of add it to my watch list. But yeah, this looks really, really interesting. So what is that? QSG. And that was a fantastic setup on that hourly chart. Yeah, trading nice. You have your own Pine script and all that. Well, the Moxie indicator is available on TradingView and StockCharts.com and Thinkorswim. So, yeah, Stephen, thank you. Yep, yeah, Rosh Hashanah starts next Monday night, ends Wednesday. Yep. So basically, kind of think about there could be a week of weakness, right as the market could be kind of coming up into upper resistance, upper extensions. On a potential buy the rumor sell the news event with the FOMC, all that kind of stuff. So let's see, PARR. Yeah, kind of looks like another decent one. What is this thing? Par Pack Holdings. Yeah, whatever that is. So far, so good. Had a nice little dip here into the daily 50. Trading Ole, same kind of thing. Price below the daily 50, Moxie indicator above zero. That's a trampoline move. And so looking good. Obviously, it's got some either resistance or support here, kind of a little of both. And yeah, at this point, we'll have to just see if it can continue to hold the daily 50 and if price can kind of come back up here. But yeah, generally speaking, PARR is looking good too. I'll add that to the list. I always get questions. People say like, how do you build your watch list? How do you come up with all these names? It's like honestly, this. I'm in the position where fortunately I get a lot of people asking me questions. I got you all, which are you guys have two eyeballs each. So think of how many people I interact with on a daily basis, and you guys are all looking at different stocks. And when you ask me questions like this is how I get new names. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of like that mind hive. Everyone else is bringing things to my attention, and that's how I kind of keep finding stuff. Yeah, Ritu, nice. Nice handle, letting everybody know you're a newbie. So, hey, that's cool. Glad you're around. Be sure to ask questions. That's what we're doing for this kind of stuff is to make sure that you guys are succeeding. That's really the whole point of this. That's why we're here. That's why I'm doing it because, it took me a long time to learn and other people, taught me. So, just kind of passing it around. Uh, Tony, no. That is exactly the same name of a person that I knew from Arizona who then moved to Oregon. Do you happen? This has happened to me before. I've had a friend subscribe to me, and I was like, "Holy cow, I know that name!" And I was like, "Is this actually you?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's me. Hey, buddy, how's it doing? How's it going?" So, Tony, Are you in Oregon? You the person that I knew back in Arizona? That would be interesting. But let's see. Yeah, Mara. Hey, Mara's finally waking up a little bit. Nice. So this is one of the things that we've talked about even in the Moxie room is Mara used to be one of the leaders as far as kind of the crypto miners and that kind of thing. And I think Anne, were you talking about Mara just a few days ago? And I said, yeah, Mara has the setup. This thing looks fine. It's got all the right things. It's got the squeeze, the Moxie indicators here. Actually, technically, this is trampoline move on the daily chart. It never actually went below zero. And you can see we've got, here's your level, here's your divergence. We got all the right stuff. And so I said, yeah, it looks fine. But the question is Mara a laggard compared to Irene and compared to Riot and any of the other Cypher, any of the other uh, crypto miners, or now that they're power generation type stuff for data centers and all that? It's like, well, yes, it looks good, but can it play catch up, and is it going to take the lead, or do you want to stick with the ones that are pretty good? And that's really kind of the open-end question that I posed to yeah, Anne and anybody else who was kind of asking about Mara. But now, hey, it's starting to look pretty good. So if you were interested in trading this, I'd say, yeah, you can always give it a shot. So Tony, okay, so it's not Tony, you're not the friend that I know, but you have the same name, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's looking good. There is volume that's starting to come back into it. The only thing I can say is it's a laggard, and if you're going to trade it, you might have to moderate your expectations because we don't know if it's going to play catch up or if it's actually kind of one of the weaker ones compared to some of the others. I think that there's usually a reason why a stock like Irene or Cypher or Riot are definitely leading the way compared to something like this. So I'm not saying it can't work. Just understand that there's a reason why sometimes ones are better than the other. All right, let's see, McMurph. We're looking at CMG. Last time I remember, yeah, there's not much to do here. Hopefully you're short. I don't know. But if you're long, there's really not much to do. I would assume you're probably trying to think, oh, hey, when is this thing going to be so low or so oversold that we can go buy it? And I don't know. Why would I want to go trade something that is basically in a downtrend? And the best I can hope is you get these little reversions to the mean. So yeah, I mean, unless you're short this thing, I don't really see a reason to be doing anything because just when they get oversold doesn't mean they have to go up. They can also just go sideways. So yeah, I just wouldn't really be doing anything like that. And then Michelle, it's another one. What is it? Uber, BER. Your name is Michelle C. I have another friend in Arizona who is Michelle C as well. Depends on what your last name actually is. Uber, yeah, looking great. Yeah, Uber's been doing great. It's been a little wavy, some consolidation in through here, but I would definitely say that this looks like a breakout. So yeah, Uber's looking good. And in fact, once again, with the Moxie indicator, There's your price trigger. So if you guys are ever looking for tickers or you want to do scanning or you're aware of Uber, you can actually sort these names based on the Moxie indicator. So you can have your own watch list and you can say, "Hey Moxie, tell me what names have fired the on the Moxie indicator on the daily, hourly, or something like that." And you would have seen this 2 days ago. It looks like, yeah, 2 days ago, maybe three days ago, and that would bring it to the top. And so that's the kind of stuff where the Moxie indicator can really help you is finding these trades, actively. But that's right. That's good right there. That's a great trade. Oh, nice, Michelle. So, see, is maybe Canada. Yeah, no, my friend's still in Arizona. So it's crazy, guys. The more and more people that I meet out there and in the world and interacting on this stuff, yeah, it's just kind of funny how sometimes it really feels like a small world. Okay, but you're in Canada. Fair enough. All right, let's see. I think we've got that pretty much all covered. Um, okay, so I'm going to wrap this up in the. Okay, I think I'm still operating, but yeah, I'm going to wrap this up in the social media session. So those of you out there on Facebook, YouTube, X, all that kind of stuff, be sure to come over to simplertrading.com/Moxie. And that's where you can find more information about me. And remember that we have $7 trials for 30 days if you want to come check it out. And this is a great market. I don't want you guys to miss it. So come on over, simplertrading.com/Moxie. And we'll